Hello again to all my food warriors, and welcome back to the second half of our Easter weekend doubleheader. Now, the pièce de résistance, Easter dinner. We are going to be making a beautifully stuffed turkey, stuffed roast turkey. As you can see, the patient is here behind me. Before we deal with the patient, we are going to get right into getting our roasting pan ready to go. What we are going to be making tonight for dinner, we have a 10 kilo or roughly 22 pound turkey. This is beautiful turkey, organic, free range, no antibiotics, no hormones, absolutely fantastic product. And so what we're gonna do is we are gonna make this turkey all that it can be by starting with preparing our roasting pan with a bunch of our vegetables and our aromatics. So what I have here is a couple of leeks that I've just washed and cut coarsely. I'm just gonna add these into my roasting pan. I've rinsed these under cold running water. Leeks are grown in sandy soil. And so we want to get any of that grit out of our roasting pan. That's not at all what we want in our end product and in our gravy. All of the flavorings that we put in here are ultimately going to be what flavors our gravy, so we want to make sure that we've got a good balance of flavor here. I've got probably 8 or 9 celery stalks here. I'm not too fussed about the number, but this is a big pan, and so the proportions that I'm using are all in relation to the pan that I have. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these kind of coarse. I don't want these to burn in the oven while we're roasting our turkey. Turkey of this size is going to go at least 3.5 hours. And so I want to make sure that these vegetables are big enough to stand up to that kind of cooking time. Nothing too fancy, kind of rough and ready. And we're going to spread these, again, all over our roasting pan. What we want to do is make sure that our turkey is not touching the bottom of the pan, that it's sitting up off the bottom, and so that the heat can circulate all around. We've got a couple of onions here as well. Because I have a couple of leeks in here, I'm only using 2 onions. If I didn't have any leeks, I'd be using at least another 1 or 2 onions just to add a little bit more volume to the roasting pan. I do like using leeks as they do roast very, very sweet, and so you get a slightly different flavor profile when we use leeks. So all we want to do here, again, coarsely chop up the onion, nothing too fine, rough and ready. There we are. And we sprinkle these around. There we are. This is one of those steps that we definitely don't want to miss. It's an opportunity to add a lot of flavor and a lot of aroma to our dish. We've got 4 big carrots here that I've simply peeled, tipped, and tailed. If they're kind of skinny like this one, again, we can just cut them up into rough chunks. Nothing too fancy. If they're a little thicker, cut them down the middle. And there we are. Again, rough chunks, nothing too fancy. We're not going to eat this. We're going to yard this out at the end, but while it's in the oven, it will be flavoring our bird and ultimately flavoring our gravy as well. So again, get all these in the roasting pan. Nothing too fancy. Oh, we have an escapee. We'll deal with him later. All right. There we are. These guys are a little fat, so make sure we cut them down the middle. There we are. There we are. All right. Now, we have a few aromatics as well, in addition to our vegetables. We've got an entire head of garlic. All we're going to do with this, cut them right down the middle, and this will roast beautifully with our turkey. There we are. And now what we want to do is we want to season this with some herbs. I have a whole plate full of herbs. I've got some beautiful rosemary, and again, we're just gonna throw a couple of sprigs down here just to flavor all those roasting juices. We've got a few bunches of sage. We'll throw those in here as well. There we are. And we've got some fresh thyme. Take a couple of sprigs of this guy as well. There we are. And we can throw him in right at the bottom of the roasting pan. Absolutely beautiful. So what we're going to do now is we're going to season this a little bit of salt and pepper. Get our garlic as well. There we are. And some freshly cracked black pepper. There we are. And now for a little bit of canola oil. This is a neutral oil, canola, peanut oil, safflower oil, grapeseed oil, vegetable oil. All of it works. We want to make sure we get a little bit into our garlic as well. There we are. All told, that's about a cup and a half of oil. We're not going to eat any of this. We will drain all of this before we make our gravy, so don't be concerned about the amount of oil that I've put in here. None of this is going to be eaten. So I'm just going to give this a quick wash down, and then we are one step closer to our bird. But I will see you in about 30 seconds with one vital step before we revisit the patient. I'll see you in 30. All right, we are back. Workstation's nice and clean. Next step, we're going to make ourselves a nice flavored butter. I have here, this is 1 pound of salted butter. This is one of the few instances where I do use salted butter. This is 1 pound of salted butter that's been brought up to kind of room temperature. And what we're going to do to flavor this butter is we're going to be taking some of our herbs here that we're using to complement our gravy, and we're just gonna slice some of these up, dice them up fine, and put them right into our flavored butter. So with a bit of sage, and as we see, we have a little stem of sage here. Not going to throw this away. I'm going to throw that right into our roasting pan. So we'll take a few good sprigs of sage. There we are. And this guy here, throw into our roasting pan. We've got some beautiful parsley. We'll take, again, a few sprigs of parsley. There we are. There we are. And add this to our bunch. We've got some rosemary, maybe a couple of sprigs of rosemary here. And again, throw any of the stems directly into our roasting pan. That way we're not wasting anything, and there's plenty of flavor in these stems. There we are. And I also have 2 teaspoons of dry thyme. I'm just going to add this directly into my butter. Now, I do have some fresh thyme, but I want to keep that fresh thyme to stuff the cavity as well as to flavor my roast potatoes. So I'm going to leave that there. Dry thyme works just as well, and it will completely hydrate and bloom as the turkey is roasting. And so all we're going to do now is we are going to cut this up nice and fine. Just the smell of these is absolutely fantastic. Now I know what you're thinking, all this butter, all this oil, it's going to be a greasy turkey. No, it's not. We're not going to eat any of this. What's important is what this does during the cooking process. None of this stuff is going to end up on the plate, but it will result in a beautifully moist, beautifully tender, beautifully juicy and succulent bird. And so these are all the steps that we have to take to get us there. But don't worry about it. None of this stuff will end up on the plate. You will see how we cleverly discard this stuff later on. The butter is important, as the milk solids in the butter are what give the turkey that beautiful mahogany color. If we just did this with oil, the color would not be anywhere near the same. And so, very important that we're using butter in this case. If I used unsalted butter, I would simply be salting it anyway. And so salted butter is one of those items that just gives me something that I can throw in finished form. There we are. And all we're going to do now is we're going to throw these herbs right into our bowl. one or two other things that I want to use to flavor my butter. I want a little pinch of black pepper here. There we are. And we have a couple of clementines. So the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to zest these on a microplane. This is a very, very fine grater that will just take that surface skin off. And there is so much flavor in the essential oils of any citrus fruit, where we just want to put this in, and all this will do is it will perfume our final product, make it a little bit more festive. We do this around Christmas time and certainly around Easter time as well, when these fruits are plentiful and in supermarket. There we are. We'll go with the second one. And all we want to do is just rotate it as we go. We don't want to get any of that white pith. That stuff is incredibly bitter and will not help our dish. All we want is just that bright, vibrant orange. Oh, the smell. The smell in here is fantastic. There we are. Let's make sure we get all of this off and into our bowl. And what we're going to do here as well is just cut these in half, and we're just going to juice these right into our butter. Now we're not going to throw these away. I'm actually going to stuff these guys into our turkey later on, just to add some additional flavor. So we'll take the juice into our butter along with that zest. It will perfume it beautifully. And then we're going to use these spent halves to add a little bit of moisture to our bird. Impeccably clean hands. We're just going to go right in there and just squeeze this all together and make sure that everything comes together in one uniform mass. We want to do this quickly. We don't want to melt the butter, and so the less time that a warm hand spends in this bowl, the better. But we do want to make sure that we are getting all of this incorporated into one mass. So I will see you in about 30 seconds with a clean set of hands and a beautiful knob of butter. All right, we are back and we are ready to deal with the patient here. So what we're going to start by doing is we've got these wings that we have to take care of, and all we want to do is get these wings right behind the turkey's head, or what otherwise would be their head if it was still attached. We just want it to get these wings pinned right behind the back. This way it maintains its shape. There we are. And it's a nice tight and tidy package. So what we're going to start by doing now is we have this skin that goes over the breast. What we want to do is loosen that skin. So we can get in there with our finger, or what I find useful as well, a rubber spatula. We can just get right in there under the skin. We don't want to burst the skin or rip it, tear it at all. We just want to get that right underneath, and we can help guide it along with our hand. And this is what's going to create that pocket for this beautiful herbed and clementine infused butter. So all we want to do, it's pretty, resilient stuff. So don't be too shy about it, but we don't want to be reckless. We don't want to be careless. We want to keep that skin intact for a beautiful presentation. And as we force our spatula down there, we just create room in that cavity for the butter to get in there and flavor the breast meat. As we know, with any kind of poultry, our dark meat tends to be a little bit more flavorful, a little bit more moist than the white meat, and so we're just going to give that white meat a little bit of help with that flavored butter to add a good bit of flavor to it, but also to keep it moist while it cooks for a long cooking time. Just doing the math in my head here, this bird's going to be in the oven for somewhere between, I'd say, 3.5, maybe 4 hours. But we're going to be keeping our eye on that to make sure that we are taking it out right as it hits an internal temp of about 160 degrees, and with carryover cooking, that will take it right into the safe zone of 165 degrees. So we've created that cavity. We're now going to take our butter, and there's no other way to do this other than to get up close and personal with our turkey here. So all we're going to do is stuff that right under the skin, There we go. And as we get a piece in, we can simply fold that skin down and push the butter into the opening that we've made. There we are, just like that. Now we're going to use all of this butter. But as I said, don't worry, we're not going to be eating it. We're just going to get the benefit of the butter as it flavors the turkey as it melts and cooks out. There we are, one side. We'll get some into the other side as well and work that in. There we are. Absolutely beautiful. There we are. One last little piece on this side. And one last little piece on that side. There we are. Now if we see that that skin is starting to pull back a little bit, not to worry. As the butter melts, that skin will tighten up and go right back into place. Absolutely beautiful. There we are. All right. Gorgeous. So now, I'm just going to give my hands a quick wash, give this a bit of a cleanup, and I will be right with you for the next step. All right, we are back. Now, you've probably noticed I've washed my hands several times every time I've handled the turkey. With turkey, poultry, very important. We run the risk of salmonella, which is a bacteria that's inherent in this type of meat. Perfectly safe to eat once we take it past 165, but this is one of those things where we don't want to cross-contaminate and touch a number of different things after we've handled the bird. So what we're going to do now, this bird came with a few extra items. We've got the liver here, we've got the heart, and we've got the neck. We are certainly not going to throw any of this stuff out. This is absolutely gold when it comes to flavoring a gravy. And so we want to make sure we take all of these items out and we use them to flavor our gravy. So the cavity is perfectly clean. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put a number of flavorings in there. Now normally, you could stuff a turkey, but you'd have to cook it a little bit longer before that stuffing came up to that same temperature. So what we want to do is let the air flow into the cavity, cook the turkey a little bit quicker, but we don't want to miss the opportunity to flavor this bird. So I have one hand that I'm handling my turkey with, one clean hand. We're going to start by seasoning the cavity. A little bit of salt and pepper. We're just going to throw some in there. There we are. And a little bit of pepper. There we go. Now we're going to start off with, got some onion here. This is just regular white onion that I've cut in 4 pieces. Going to throw a couple of pieces of onion in there. We're going to take all of these tangerine pieces, throw these guys in there, and we're just going to alternate. So as we stuff that cavity, we're just going to push it to the back. We're going to get in there, maybe take a couple of sprigs of sage, throw that in there for flavoring, a sprig of rosemary, throw that in there for flavoring, maybe a little bit of fresh thyme, throw a couple of sprigs of thyme in there as well. There we are. And then maybe some parsley. Pick up a couple of sprigs of parsley here. There we are. We'll just switch hands. Get these guys into the cavity as well. Don't have to be pretty about it. This is all just about getting some flavoring into that bird. We'll get a few more of these clementine halves. There we are. Maybe one more and another piece of onion. There we go. So we have stuffed this cavity with some beautiful aromatics. These will steam as the bird cooks. So very, very happy with that. If I look at the neck cavity now, this is another opening where we can put some aromatics. And so what we're going to do here, we got a little bit of packaging. Remove that. There we are. And so what we're going to do here as well is we are going to get some salt and pepper. Just throw that in there. There we are. A little bit of pepper. All right, we'll use the skin to mop all of that up. And now I'm done dealing with my salt and pepper, so I can use both hands here. And what I'm going to do in this cavity is just stuff it with the same aromatics. We'll get some onion in there. We'll get some of these clementine pieces. There we are. And maybe we'll get a sprig or two of parsley, and maybe we'll go with one of sage as well. There we are. And we'll put these guys in there just to flavor our bird. And now what we'll do is we will just wrap that skin underneath nice and tight, and all of those flavorings will do their job in that cavity. So what we're going to do now is we are going to grab our bird, and we're going to put him right into our roasting pan. So we'll just bring that a little closer, and here we are. Rotate that around. There we are. Absolutely gorgeous. Now what I've done here is I've cut a hole in the flap of skin right by the end of the turkey here, and I've just tucked these two drumsticks in. So this is all I really want to do. This way we keep the shape, it pulls it all together, it's nice and plump, and all we're going to do now is we're just going to season the exterior of this bird. So again, I'm going to wash my hands, and I will see you in about 30 seconds. Right, final step before we go into the oven. Again, hands are washed. We've got some kosher salt, some freshly cracked black pepper, and all we're going to do is season the outside of this bird. So from a height, we're just going to sprinkle a good bit of salt. Want to make sure we get that neck in there as well. There. We are absolutely gorgeous. And some freshly cracked black pepper. There we are. And now we're going to cook this in a couple of different phases. We are going to cook this to start at 450 degrees for 20 minutes, and then we are going to turn the heat down to 350 degrees. We are going to baste this with a turkey baster every 30 minutes just to make sure that we get, again, all of that beautiful herb butter, basting the outside of our bird, keeping it moist, and this is the way we ensure a gorgeous, uniformly colored bird. So in the oven it goes. I will see you 1 hour. All right, we are back. We are about 2 hours into our cook. We have basted our turkey twice, and now, before we baste it again, every half hour, we're gonna get we're gonna devote a little bit of thought time to our side dishes, or as we call them, I contorni. All the things that will make our turkey absolutely shine. Not that it needs any help, but we will be going there regardless. So one of the quickest vegetables that you can cook. This is an easy recipe for braised fennel. Fennel is a little bit more interesting than celery. It's got a little bit of a black licorice note to it, but fantastic. It gets really, really sweet when you roast it or you braise it, and this is a very, very quick braised fennel recipe. So I'm going to be starting off in the pan, a couple of tablespoons of butter. Just going to get a little bit of heat under that. We're going to add a couple of tablespoons of olive oil to this as well. There we are. And the olive oil will prevent the butter from burning. So I've washed my fennel. It's here, it's ready to go. And this is basically a bulb. So what I want to do is I want to take these little green items here off it. These little branches. These are great for stalks, so we're going to keep these aside. We're not going to throw these out, but we're not going to use them in this application. So we are just going to kind of cut these off. There we are. And if we've got a couple of these little fennel fronds, not to worry, these are great in our dish as well. So we'll just keep these here. All we want to do now, we've got this root end, which sometimes tends to be a little bit dry. We're just going to shave that right off. This we can discard. But the sign of a healthy fennel bulb, it's tightly packed, it's firm to the touch. As you cut it, just that scent of licorice, so perfumed. So all we're going to do here is we are going to cut this right down the middle. Now, some people will cut out this core. I don't. I leave it in. It actually helps keep our fennel together. So all I want to do here is cut some slices about maybe a half inch or so thick. And then what we're going to do is we're going to cut these maybe in half. We want to keep them kind of bite size. So we'll do the same thing to the other one. There we are. Get over here. And we will cut those right in half. So these are 2 good sized fennel bulbs. Don't forget we're going to shave the bottom end of this here. There we are. Cut this guy right down the middle. And then again into bite-sized pieces right into our pile here. And our last one. There we are. Alright, so what we're going to do is we are just going to move all of this around so our olive oil and our butter are combined. We like to have the flavor of butter, but we like to cook with a slightly higher temperature, and that's what olive oil gives us. So we will start off by getting our fennel in the pan. There we are. And to this we're going to add a few other flavorings. Our fennel is a pretty firm vegetable, and so this will take a little bit longer to cook, but while this is cooking we will get everything else ready to go along with it. So we will start off by just adding a little bit of salt and pepper. This is freshly cracked black pepper. There we are. And we will give this a quick stir. There we are. And to our fennel, we will add a couple large white onions here. Just going to cut these down the middle. And again, we will cut these kind of in little wedges. There we are. And so this way we retain the shape of the onion. There we are. Beautiful little wedges. The onions will add a good bit of sweetness to this recipe. And they will all cook down beautifully soft. And by the time this is all done, our onions and our fennel will be very complementary to one another. There we are. So we will let this continue to cook away as we get our other flavorings ready to go. We're going to start off with 1 chili pepper. Now this time I don't want that aggressive heat, and so what we'll do is we will make sure that we take out all of these seeds here in the middle, as well as this membrane that's holding our seed pocket to the chili, and this way we'll get a much milder heat, but we'll still get that flavoring from the chilies. So we will cut this very, very fine. This also adds a great bit of color. And then we've got the base of our chili here. There we go. So we will get all of this right into our pan. And the last thing that we're going to add is a couple of cloves of garlic. There we are. Just crush these, and then we will slice these up very fine. There we are. So I will add this to our pan. Give this a quick stir until it picks up a little bit of color. And that should take me about, I'd say 12 to 15 minutes, so I will see you in that time. All right, now while our fennel is going, I just pulled our turkey out of the oven here. We're gonna give this guy another baste. Now look at the color of this turkey. It's by no means done. It still has another at least hour and a half, close to 2 hours. So all we're gonna do is we're gonna get right down into all of those pan juices and all that fat at the bottom of our pan, and we're just gonna baste our turkey. And this is what's gonna give our turkey this beautiful mahogany color. It's all the milk fat from the butter that we put under the skin. As you can see, the skin has firmed up. That butter has melted away. It's all in the bottom of our pan right now. And this is what we use to give all of our turkeys an absolutely gorgeous color. We've got some fat that's melting in the cavity, not a problem. We can just suck that up and again put it right over the skin. Absolutely gorgeous. So I like the color that my turkey has taken on. I don't want it to take on too much more color, and so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little foil tent over my turkey, and this will slow down the browning considerably. So there we are. Absolutely gorgeous. Look at that. All right, so before this goes back in the oven, all we're going to do is take a little bit of foil, and all we want to do is just loosely tent our bird, kind of tuck that in. There we are. Yeah, we are. And this will go back in the oven. And again, every 30 minutes, out it comes. Quick baste, just as you saw, right up until the end. And so I will throw this guy back in the oven, keep working on my fennel. See you in about 15 minutes. All right, our pan is just starting to dry up, so we are going to put the last of our braising liquid in before we cover this up and let this continue to soften. So we have about 4 ounces of a good dry white wine. This is an Italian Pinot Grigio. In addition to that, we have 1 cup of a good quality chicken stock. So that will be our braising liquid. And we'll just give this a cover and let this go for about 15 minutes. That will soften the fennel up beautifully. After that, lid off, we'll let it reduce, and our dish is done. So I will see you in about 10 minutes time. All right, we are back, and our liquid is just about reduced down in our fennel. Beautifully soft, beautifully sweet. All we're gonna do is we're gonna finish this up with a little bit of parsley that I've cut up, and that is it. That is it. It could not be simpler. And then we are gonna go in there and taste for seasoning. There we are. All right. We will give this one final stir. Oh, look how beautifully soft that has become. Beautifully tender. Oh, the smell is absolutely gorgeous. And that sauce has thickened up. That wine has brought it a little bit of acidity. Very important. Our chicken stock was completely no salt added because we did salt our fennel, and so we don't want to oversalt by reducing our chicken stock down and adding any extra salt where we don't want it. And now we will go in for a taste. Just going to cut the heat. Oh, look at that. Look at that. A little hot. Beautifully soft, beautifully sweet. Added sweetness from the onions. Just a beautiful side dish. A beautiful side dish to pair with something on the lighter side. Something like seafood, poultry, obviously chicken, turkey, even pork if prepared in more of a lighter manner. But this is a fantastic accompaniment. I will get this off the burner. And now we turn our attention to the stuffing. So I will get a few things prepared and I will see you in about 5 minutes. All right, we are in the last hour of our cook here. We have turned our attention to our stuffing. And yes, we're going to make stuffing. We're just not going to make it the way we traditionally would inside the turkey. It's much safer this way. We don't have to bring it quite up to the same temperature. And this way we are sure that the temperature of our bird, as we measure it with an instant read thermometer, is fully safe and our stuffing is fully ready to go. What I have here in this pan, I've already started this off, 3 or 4 tablespoons of olive oil. I have 1 pound each ground veal, lean ground pork, lean ground beef. I browned that off just with a little bit of salt and pepper and olive oil, nothing else, no other seasonings. What I have here is 1 leek that I've washed thoroughly and cut up, sliced very fine. I have 1 large white onion. I've got 5 ribs of celery, 3 cloves of garlic, all that I've cut up very fine. We want to lighten this stuffing up. Yes, there's meat in it, but we want to lighten this up with a fair bit of vegetable. So on top of all that, I also have 6 mushrooms that I'm just going to slice, again, very, very thin. The mushrooms help maintain moisture in the stuffing itself. And so as we slice these up, these will ultimately cook down, but they will retain a good bit of moisture as well. Mushrooms are like sponges, and so they just soak up all of the flavors of the foods that they're cooked with. So we will dispatch these as quick as we can, and then we will get our vegetables in to cook down with the meat before we add a few secret ingredients. I wish you could smell what the house smells like. The added benefit of cooking a big piece of meat like this is the smell in the house is absolutely intoxicating. I can't tell you how many people have come down and asked, when are we eating? When's dinner going to be ready? That smell will pull even the biggest hermit children out of their rooms and get them around the table. When I grew up, growing up in an Italian house, we didn't have air fresheners. The stuff that's supposed to mask all the odors in the house, we didn't have any of that. No summer's breeze, autumn mist, none of that stuff. We had roast turkey, baked ziti. That was the kind of stuff that really, created great food memories and fantastic smells in the house. So I pity anyone who did not grow up in a house like mine, where the smells of food were absolutely everywhere and created some of the strongest food bonds and food memories that are out there. So our last mushroom. There we are. All right. So now we will get all of these vegetables into the pan, and we will continue to cook these down along with our meat. Like I said, this will lighten up the stuffing considerably. We still have some things to do, some secret ingredients to add to this to get the flavoring and the texture just where we want it. But as you can see, we are not short on vegetables in this preparation. There we are. So I'm just going to cook this down. I will see you in about 10 minutes time. We are back. Our vegetables are cooking down. The last thing we're going to add to this, these are roasted chestnuts. These are vacuum packed roasted chestnuts. These are already pre-cooked. These are ready to eat as they are. To me, nothing says the holidays like chestnuts. And we can't always find them where we live year round, and so this vacuum packed option is absolutely fantastic. So this is 300 grams of vacuum packed chestnuts. All I'm going to do is just slice them up, kind of dime sized pieces, and that's it. And we will throw those in. So I will take these to task and see you in about 2 minutes. All right, our chestnuts are in. Our vegetables have sweated down beautifully. The last flavorings we're going to add in are our herbs. So I've got some parsley here, and I've got some sage, just got a small handful of sage leaves here. All I want to do is I want to cut these very, very fine. I'm adding these at the end because I don't want the flavor of the herbs to be muted. I want these to be bright, and I want to be able to taste these in the profile of my stuffing. So we're going to cut these up nice and fine, and then we are going to incorporate this in right at the end. Our parsley, we'll just get this in a little wad here, and we will cut this up. Stems and all, we want that textural contrast of the stems. Nice and crunchy. Here we are. We will now mix everything together, and we will give it one last go. There we are. So we will throw this guy in, and we are almost there. We will give this a quick mix. As soon as they hit the heat, oh, just the smell of those herbs, fantastic. So we will give this just a quick toss, and now we will taste for seasoning before we add our two final ingredients. And I want this to be slightly over seasoned because the next two ingredients have no salt in them whatsoever, and so they will actually mute some of the seasoning that's in our stuffing. So we'll go in and we'll just give this a quick taste. Just a tiny pinch of salt and a tiny pinch of pepper, and that's it. Now what we'll do is we'll take 3 cups good quality chicken stock. Again, this is no salt added, and so we will just add this in, and we will bring that up to a simmer. And the last thing that we're going to add are some breadcrumbs. Now these are unseasoned breadcrumbs. All this is old bread that's been allowed to dry out, that we've put in a food processor, and that's it. And that's what we want to thicken our stuffing here. And keep in mind, this is going to go in the oven for about 15 minutes before this goes to the table. And what that will do is the underside of the stuffing will stay beautifully moist, the top will develop this beautiful crust, and we will get those two beautiful contrasting textures in our stuffing as we go to the table. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to add a couple of handfuls of breadcrumbs. This is not overly precise. It's something that is just more of a mouthfeel thing than anything else. There we are. We'll start with that. We'll give it a stir. Just over time, I know the texture that I'm looking for. I think we're going to need a little bit more, but this will thicken up and it will set beautifully. There we are. A couple more handfuls of breadcrumbs. There we are. I think we are just about there. And then like I said, before we take this to the table, this goes right into a hot oven. The top will get beautifully crispy. The bottom will stay beautifully moist. And here is our stuffing. Absolutely gorgeous. There we are. So we will give this a quick hose down, and I will see you in 5 minutes. All right, we are back. Our turkey is just about done. On to our vegetable sides. So we've got 2 that we're preparing in addition to our braised fennel. I have here 2 pounds of Brussels sprouts. Don't give me that look. I'm telling you, roasted Brussels sprouts are where it's at. All I'm doing here, I've got a Brussels sprout. I'm just going to take That little tip off, that's it. You see these little leaves that fall off? Don't throw them out. Cut this in half, throw them in there, make sure all these little leaves go in there as well. Those leaves, I'm telling you, my kids fight over those things. When they come out of the oven, before they get to the plate, they're all sitting around, establishing body position in front of the stove, body checking each other out. You grab it, they taste like popcorn. They're fantastic, but I'm telling you, if you don't like Brussels sprouts, try Brussels sprouts this way. I guarantee you'll like them. Roasting is my favorite way to prepare any vegetable, and Brussels sprouts are no different. Boiled Brussels sprouts, no thanks. Roasted any day of the week. Roasted simply. So what I have here, 2 pounds of Brussels sprouts, tail off, cut in half. I got 5 cloves of garlic to be thrown in whole. We're not going to eat the garlic. We can if we want to, but it's there for flavoring. And all I'm going to do here is add a good bit of olive oil, probably 5-6 tablespoons of olive oil. We want to make sure that these are nicely coated, and salt and pepper. That's it. That's it. That's all we're doing. Could not be simpler. Pinch of salt, pinch of pepper, and all we're going to do is just give these a toss, throw them on a baking sheet, and throw them into a 425 degree oven. We're going to toss them about 10-15 minutes into the cook. Literally 20 minutes in, these are done. They'll be beautifully golden brown, and like I said, those little leaves will be so crispy, just like popcorn. I'm telling you, your guests will be fighting over them. Better yet, sit your guests at the table and you enjoy a few of those before you serve them. It's the treat for the chef. There we are. That's it. Brussels sprouts are ready to go in the oven. I'm going to clean this up. We'll be right back with our potatoes. All right, oven's just about ready for our Brussels sprouts to go in. So we've got our Brussels sprouts here in our bowl. Salt, pepper, olive oil, a little bit of garlic. That's it. That's all we need. So we are going to put all of this on a standard size baking tray. We want to make sure we get all of that oil and all of that seasoning down with us. Just make sure we spread these out into one even layer, and we'll try and make sure that the garlic is evenly distributed here as well. So our Brussels sprouts are ready to go, and now we will turn our attention onto our carrots and potatoes. Again, we're going to look to roast these, so we'll just move our Brussels sprouts out of the way. I have here in my big bowl here 3 pounds of baby carrots, as we can see at the bottom, and then we have about 4 pounds of russet potatoes that I've peeled and cut into even-sized pieces. Now, if I were using something like a Yukon Gold, I wouldn't even bother peeling these, but russets have a little bit of a thicker skin, and so we took that skin off just to make them a little bit more pleasurable to eat. What I have here is a good 7 or 8 cloves of garlic. Again, whole, throw those in just for flavoring. We're going to start with a little bit of salt. There we are. A little bit of freshly cracked black pepper, and this is a fairly large bowl of vegetables here. We've got some fresh thyme. We're going to throw that in there. Some leaves that fell off. Make sure we get those in as well. We got a couple of sprigs of fresh rosemary. We'll throw that in as well. Peel that off. There we are. And one more. Maybe one more. There we are. You know what? We can throw these stems in as well. Why not? And we'll throw in a fair bit of olive oil here. You know what? We'll just take this spout off. There we are. We want to make sure we have sufficient olive oil relative to the amount of vegetables that we have in here, and we will just give these guys a toss. There we are. Now the final ingredient I'm going to add in here is just a little bit of sweet paprika, just for coloring. There we are. And we will give this a toss as well. are. Make sure that everything gets coated. And now we have a slightly larger tray here that we will use to get all of our other vegetables on. There we go. I want to make sure everything is on one single layer, and we will get in there to make sure we get all of our flavoring and our seasoning onto our vegetables. There we are. And that's it. As soon as the oven reaches temperature, which is about 450 degrees, these guys will go in. Brussels sprouts in the middle of the oven, potatoes and carrots up top. So I will simply rearrange these, get these into the oven, and I will see you with the turkey. All right, we are back. Our potatoes and our Brussels sprouts, our carrots are just about ready. Here we have our turkey. Look at this absolutely gorgeous color. Absolutely love that. This looks absolutely just spectacular. Just spectacular. The turkey's been resting for at least 35 minutes. I've taken all of the onions, all of the herbs, all of the clementines that were in the cavity, just remove that. And we're just about to get ready to carve as we get ready to make our gravy. So what I've done, I've started to pour out the liquid from the pan into a gravy separator. And you can see we have two distinct layers here. We have a bottom layer and a top layer. The top layer is nothing but fat. Bottom layer is all of the juices that we want to keep. This is all the juices from the meat. This is what has leached out of the meat, and we want to use this as the basis for our gravy. So the way this gravy separator works, we pull a little button here, and the bottom layer will be drained from the bottom first. Once we get to the fat layer, we'll discard that fat layer. Some of these have a little spout like a watering can. You pour off the good stuff. When you get to the fat, you can discard the fat. So what we're going to do is we're going to allow that all the meat juices to go back into our pan. And as we get to the fat, we stop, move over to a bowl, and simply discard all of the fat. So this is the vegetable oil, this is the butter, all of the fat that we don't want, we will discard this. And we will do this a couple of times until we get all of the meat juices from the pan, in the pan, and part of our gravy. We absolutely want that depth of flavor. We do not want to throw any of that away. So I will do this a couple more times, and I will see you in about 3 minutes. All right, we are back. We've got all of our vegetables strained out from our resting juices. We've got our heart, our liver, and our neck still in the pan. We're just squeezing the last of the juice out. There we are, and we're just going to discard this off to the side. Now this is going to form the basis for our gravy. Don't worry about the fact that there are a couple of little pieces of vegetables in there. We're going to strain that out right at the end. But more importantly, this is all the fat that came out of the turkey. This is the butter. This is the oil that we had at the bottom of the pan, and this is all of the fat that rendered from underneath the skin of the turkey. More importantly, none of this is going into our body. So we will let this cool. We will discard this appropriately. Now, as we get started with our gravy, we've got here 2 liters of a good quality chicken stock. This is one, again, not salted, so we will adjust the salt and the seasoning as we go. We're just going to pour this in so we can start to get this on the heat and start to deglaze our roasting pan. And as we do that, the flavors will intensify. We will thicken the gravy momentarily, but we will get this on the heat, start to work with our spoon all of these crystallized juices from around the pan. This will be the basis for our gravy. So we're going to get this going on the big stove behind me. I'm going to get this going for about 10 minutes or so, and then we're going to come right back as we're going to be ready to finish this gravy. So I will see you in about 10 minutes time. All right, we are there. We've got the flavor profile of our gravy. Absolutely fantastic. We just need to thicken that up. So what I have here is 1 heaped tablespoon of cornstarch. I've got some raspberry jam. I want to add literally about a tablespoon of raspberry jam here as well. I want to bring a little bit of sweetness to my gravy. It's very earthy, it's very rich, and I just want something that's going to brighten it up a little bit. So there isn't a whole lot of raspberry jam left in this container, so we are just going to finish that off. It's about, I'd say, 1 heaped tablespoon here as well. And the last thing we're going to add to this is about 4 ounces of a sweet red vermouth. This is, again, it starts off as white wine, but this is infused with herbs and botanicals and all kinds of good stuff. And it's a little bit sweet, but this is what we're going to use to dissolve our cornstarch and create our slurry. And then this is what we are going to add to our gravy, and this is going to thicken it up to a beautiful consistency. So all we're going to do is we're just going to work this through, make sure there are no lumps in our cornstarch. We don't want any lumps in our gravy, and so we're just going to keep stirring this until it's completely smooth. And then we will add this to the gravy. This, because the gravy is at a boil, this will thicken on contact, and we should be good to go. So I will add this to the gravy. I will strain it into our bowl, and then we carve our turkey. So I will see you in 1 minute. All right, it is time to carve the bird. All of our accompaniments are done. We're going to start with one of the breasts here. So this has been well rested. Easily has been resting for a good 35-40 minutes. Very important as we roast a large cut of meat like this. We want to allow plenty of time to rest for all of those juices to redistribute. There we are. Back into the bird. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to carve off one of the breasts. There we are. Look at that. Look at all of that juice. Absolutely gorgeous. Oh, all right, get a better handle on that. And just one final incision. And here we are. Make sure we keep that skin intact. There we are. This is one gorgeous breast. Now look at the color. Look at the color. Look at the skin. As we pull this skin back, all of those herbs stayed behind and they've seasoned the meat. Absolutely fantastic. So we have one piece of our white meat, and now we'll take off a leg and thigh here as well, so that we have some dark meat that we can pull from. There we go. Sure we can get right into that joint. There we are. So the way we're going to carve this, we're going to carve this against the grain. So look at all the juice coming out from that. Look at how tender and moist that is. Now we can cut this a little bit thicker as it is starting to shred, but this is what we're talking about in terms of moist, tender, juicy meat. We're going to get a little bit of that skin in there as well. You know what? We're going to taste this. Absolutely stunning. And here we're just going to pull directly from our leg piece here. Look how tender this meat is. It just flakes right off the leg. There we are. So we'll get one plate here ready to go. We've got our white meat, we've got our dark meat, and now we'll get a few of our fixings here as well. Get a few of our beautifully roasted potatoes. A few of our beautiful baby carrots. Oh, look at that. We will get a few of our Brussels sprouts. Now we've already had a situation here where we've had to beat a couple of the kids away with a stick. I think we're trying to get all of those. This is what I'm talking about here. These beautiful little crispy pieces. Like popcorn. Love them. Absolutely love them. So we will get our fennel as well. Our stuffing. I will finish assembling this plate and we will be right at the finale. For those of you who have made it this far, you know what? I thank you. If you try this recipe, I guarantee you will be rewarded. This has been a bit of a marathon, but I'm telling you, this is so worth it. A celebratory dish, second to none. We've got our beautiful braised fennel. We've got our chestnut stuffing. Our roasted Brussels sprouts. Oh. Our roast potatoes. And our beautifully glistening turkey with our gravy. Absolutely fantastic. We'll get a little bit of white, a little bit of dark. That is melt in your mouth tender. And every bit of those herbs, the citrus, the onions, all of that are just perfuming the meat. Absolutely fantastic. I do hope you try this. Yeah, a little bit of work, but we have a ton of leftovers for the week and we can do a lot of different things with this, which I'm sure you'll see in a future episode on the channel. As always, from our family to yours, we wish you all a happy Easter. For those who celebrate and observe the season, as always, do like and subscribe if you find the content useful. Do share the content, as that is what we're all about. And this is Coach Joe saying I will see you on the next one.